Bullets in the Chamber, Arrested Development's most recent album that I wanted to ask you about is that as your career as a solo artist and Arrested Development evolved, and as we got into the eras of all these 7,000 collaborations every week, um, I've noticed in the last several years that you've been doing more of them, and that I've been pleasantly surprised, like on Hello, for instance, off Bullets in the Chamber, Razkaz is on the first song, Hello, and you have these supremely elite lyricists that are
Yeah.
collaborating with you. And then, back a couple years ago, you're working with Freddie Fox. You got all these different
Yeah.
collaborations, Master Ace now, as just discussed. So, do you find like what has led to this creative explosion with you and all these artists?
Yeah, I think it was just time. Arrested Development's been doing music for 32 years. And if you look at our catalog from day one to now, most of it does not have features like that, right? So, which is basically what you were alluding to in your question. So, for years, we just sort of were doing our own thing on our own tip. And we might have a feature here and there, but nothing like what we've been doing for the last three albums. Then, when I met Configure, which was during the pandemic, our camaraderie and musicality energy together was just different. He was already on some like boom bap hip hop stuff, and we really hadn't reached deep in that bag the way we could, you know. And so for me as a long time hip hop, you know, aficionado, whatever that word is, I was like, okay, I want to reach deep in that bag now. And so we started reaching out to people. And, as you know, we had Daddy Kane on for the effing love. We had, as you mentioned, Bumpy Knuckles, I mean, so many dope artists, Moni Love. I mean, the list goes on, Sugar Hill Gang. I mean, just everybody. And so,
King
uh,
Crooked,
yep, you're
Crocodile,
exactly right. Yep. Crooked was on there. And then
a
of
lot of
course
greats.
on this album, Razkaz is, Sa-Roc. I mean, you name it, Mark X. I mean, so many people
Chuck
on
D.
this. Chuck D, the legendary Grandmaster Cass. So I mean, there's so many people on this record. So yeah, it was just time for us to reach into that bag. It also helps because as we've gotten into the era of like thorough indie records, like thoroughly independent, streaming makes making money off albums much less of a chance that you're going to make any really good money off of it. And we sell units, but not huge, which I talk about in one of our songs called Arrogance. Um, so cross collateralizing fan bases is even more important. Like if you really want your records to um, have the biggest splash for the buck, in a sense, it's even wise to utilize each other's audiences as much as possible. So Razcast has an audience that very likely wasn't going to listen to the next Arrested Development record, and vice versa. Arrested Development fans weren't going to listen to the next Razcast project. So to me, we're introducing each other to each other's fan bases, sometimes for the first time, other times, you know, surprisingly, like you said earlier, like you were surprised to see so many collaborations on an Arrested Development project. And so I think a lot of this is very intentional, and it also matches with our artistic dreams right now, where we're at as a group.
Okay. And with that, do you find that there's a certain renaissance or a newfound appreciation that you guys have been around that long that's leading to this? Or do you think back 20 years ago, 25 years ago, do you think the doors would have been as open to say, get these type of artists or to get this? Or did you even ask back in the day, or you were just doing your own thing and you didn't care?
We were doing our own thing. It's not that we didn't care, but I'll be honest, I was on a different tip. Like in the very beginnings, for instance, I was just thinking about this recently because Kafiga posted our Tennessee single back in 1992, and the fact that Showbiz did a remix, right? And I'll never forget, like at that time period, I was really on some, okay, I absolutely adore New York hip hop. I adore West Coast hip hop. but we're about to do a Southern thing, and I wanted to make sure that our voice was heard. And this is prior to Andre 3000 saying, the South's
Right.
got something to say. And
Two or 3 years before that, by the way.
yeah, 2 or 3 years before that. So my goal at that time was like, okay, no, we got to make sure that we are heard for what we're doing. So when the label, a good friend of mine, Lindsey Williams, who was our A&R, he was a hip hop head from Harlem, from New York. He was like, yo, let's get Showbiz to do a remix to bring that boom bap energy for New York. I didn't like that idea, not because I didn't like Showbiz. I actually love Showbiz and AG. I love this production. But I was, as I just said, I was really striving to make sure that we were coming with a particular sound that was not, in my opinion, done before, which I don't think it was. Like Tennessee it wasn't sounding like, you know, any production that was being done in New York or in LA. It was just a very unique sound. And so I wanted to make sure we maintained that. We still did do the remix, and I had a call with Showbiz, and I was like, yo, let me be honest with you. I don't feel like this song needs a remix, but I'm excited to have you as a part of this because I love your work. And he said, man, I totally get it. And we clicked up. He did a fantastic job. I think he used like a Busy Bee or a Spoonie G beat behind it, and it was so fresh. And ironically, it wasn't needed to break in New York. However, it did break that song, Tennessee, in one state. It was North Carolina, swore by his remix. So I say all of this to say the collaboration thing wasn't my thing back in those days. It became my thing as the group was more established. I felt like, okay, now I can open the doors and let other people in and collaborate with each other and stuff like that. We did Premiere remixes. I don't know if you knew that. Like we did Premiere did Ease My
Pressless
Mind.
Records.
Yep. Chrysalis Records. We hired Premiere to do a remix for Ease My Mind. He crushed it. It was one of my favorite remixes ever of Arrested Development's material, early material especially. We had Marley Marl even do a remix of a gumbo track called Free Soul, and he remixed that, and it was dope. So, it's just one of those things that took us some time to finally start collaborating.
Well, on a related note, I did always wonder if it was partially because you guys, unlike a lot of groups, had the singing element inherent into the composition of the group. So
Yep.
I often wondered because part of the excitement of a remix is to have a different voice or a different tone or a different
Right.
sound, and you guys had that inherently in your group already. So I didn't know
Yeah.
if that factored in.
And you know what's funny? You mentioned that a lot of producers in hip hop aren't used to working with melody, right? So if they're going to create a track, a lot of times a remix, they just might find something that's funky or dope, but it may not be in key or in tune with a melodic style song. Like not every hip hop producer, especially in the 90s, was equipped to do that, And I mean Showbiz was, but he used a lot of our musical elements for Tennessee. Premier definitely was. I mean, he would go on to work for Christina Aguilera and, you name it, like everybody he's worked for. So he obviously had the sort of musicality chops to be able to remix anything. But yeah, I mean, a lot of producers weren't necessarily equipped to do that kind of remix too.
Yeah. Now, you had also mentioned Arrogance, which is one of my favorite tracks from Bullets in the Chamber, so we'll get into that now. Um,
Thank you.
this song, you could do a whole interview about, in my opinion, but the so many interesting things. So first of all, I wanted to get from you, there's a lot of truisms or slogan type of lyrics with all great men aren't good men.
Yeah, but
So
a good man could become a great one.
yes, so break down how and why you wanted to put that in Arrogance.
Yeah, so for me, basically, I that song is sort of a testimony to my particular journey in the industry and how arrogant I feel the industry is towards artists, meaning owning your creativity past the point of making your money back and even making a fantastic profit, which I think any business partner deserves. That's a win-win. However, for us, it's been 30 years and we still don't own our original masters from the 90s records. So That to me is deep, deep, deep arrogance and greed from the industry towards us artists. And I know so many peers that are in the same boat as I am. And then the arrogance of a lot of artists towards each other um, is just mind blowing. You know, when we're all creating this music and expressing from our hearts for a fan base out there of music lovers, and there's just no need for that arrogance towards each other, yet there is such arrogance towards each other. um so it's really talking about how the industry has jaded me to some extent. The chorus is, I'm sad. I'm just like bummed out by some of the things that have happened in this industry, in my journey with this industry. So yeah, all great men ain't good men, but any good man could become a great one. And what I'm saying right there is like a lot of the people that you think are so incredible aren't really good. They may be incredible in some aspects. They may have sold millions and millions of records. They may even be billionaires, but they're not good men. But any good man can become a great one. And I feel that that's so true. Like, I would rather have people around me, which is what I do on a daily basis. I have people around me that I feel are good men that can become even greater, as opposed to having quote unquote great men that aren't good. They're not good in heart. They're not good in how they navigate life and how they treat you and the others around them. I'd rather not have those people around me. And I don't. I just literally avoid them. Even if I could benefit a lot from them, I still would rather just negate that benefit to have people around me that I really respect.